Have you ever thought about getting a roaring speedboat or rather a silent, sporty sailing yacht? Well, if you are in this position, you might also think about getting a classic super sports car or a BMW i8 Roadster. What do I mean by this comparison? We will find out in our full review of this very interesting plug-in hybrid super sports car, an exterior, interior, and of course the silent and yet both roaring driving experience in full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! What's up, guys? You want to see me rocket that one out? Well, the initial concept of this vehicle in 2012 was an open top variant. Then in 2013 they brought the Coupe series version. In 2018 the Roadster, now to have this basically as a peak. From the front they both look similar. They come standard LED headlights, optional laser light for just 6,000 euros extra. Come on, that's nothing, isn't it? Well, in the front the standard BMW double kidney, but on the inside there are no air intakes because they are not needed for the front, because here in the front there's the electric motor. Sadly, it's just a service opening, we cannot open it. That's one of the downsides, you cannot take a look at it, but you can watch it from the outside, and it's definitely something very special, flat and wide. Definitely, to me, a look of a super sports car. 4.68 meters or 15'3" is the total length of the i8 Roadster. That's the same with the Coupe. And you can see that the roof silhouette rather remains the same. Here, of course, this is special than this Speedster style with the Roadster badge. I will soon also show it how it looks like with a closed roof. 20-inch rims come with standard equipment. This color tone is called copper. And the material mix is, of course, very interesting. It's not a small car. Still, the weight about 1,600 kilograms because it's a mix of aluminum and carbon fiber, or CFK, carbon fiber reinforced plastics, or CFRP. CFK would be the German word. So you can see it right here, or the carbon fiber, for example. And the door is really light, together with the help of those hydraulic struts. And that's really helpful because it's not too easy to open and close the door from the inside. So at least it's good that it's quite light. What do you think about the design? It's definitely super spectacular. And the most spectacular part is right here. It's the same again with the Coupe, because the airstream comes right here, goes through there. And it's not only designed also for the aerodynamics, and surely the most spectacular part of this vehicle. So this is where the design ends, this element. You can really reach through there. I wonder that best was allowed crash test wise. Then horizontal layout here for the rear, floating lines, really beautifully done, a piece of art. And since we cannot really show you something of the engine, let's already talk about that, because the combustion engine is powering the rear axle, a 1.5 liter 3-cylinder. Wow, would you expect that in a super sports car? Here then with 230 horsepower approximately. Then again, the electric motor in the front, 140 horsepower and overall system power of 370 horsepower. In this case, you can add up the horsepower figures because both motors actually separated. If they're combined, basically the electric motor would also power, the same axle as the combustion engine, then you cannot add up the horsepower figures because they are at not at the same RPM rate. So you often see plug-in hybrids where you say like 100 plus 200 is 250. And it's like, what? And in this case, you can really add them up because they are separate. There's no link between front and the rear axle for the drive. We will, of course, very soon experience that. So front left, seen from the driver, you can plug the electric cable in. And the electric consumption in my test was about 10 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And the pure electric range is supposed to be something 40 kilometers. And for the petrol side, we scored about 5 liters on 100 kilometers with the electric help. Very interesting, the normal fuel tank is 30 liters, and for 100 euros extra, you get a 42 liter fuel tank. I mean, come on, this extra policy is pathetic. And now let's close the roof. See, the mechanism works up to a speed of 50 kilometers an hour. And you see, there are maybe faster ones, but it's not too slow. Pretty spectacular also. What do you think about that? So that's the way. And let's also open it again once more. So let's check that one out. Here we go. Did anyone count the seconds? That would be very interesting. Pretty fancy stuff, right? This is that monster key. You can see the current range, for example. It's basically also a computer. Yeah, pretty fancy, but a small one would also do it. Here to open and close it. Well, and then let's open the door. And this, of course, a very spectacular one. You can do it right here. And here we go. When you sit from the inside, watch out who's on the outside. It's like a bam! You don't slam someone. Here you can see the carbon fiber at the inside of the door. Also very interesting. And then also this chassis where here we can see all the carbon fiber that is being used for that. Pretty thick here all around. Will be very funny to get inside. Then on the inside, of course, a sporty surrounding with good material build quality. Blue logo for this BMW i project, the electric project right there. The seats here on the Roadster, they have more shoulder support than with the Coupe. You can see it right here. This is added for the Roadster to hold you tight. Just animal skin available, sadly, in brown, black, gray and beige. Of course, for a sustainable super sports car, you would need different materials like a high-grade leather red Sensatec or also Alcantara. Then let's get inside. And this is also one way to get, in this style and, pulling your legs behind you. So this could be one way to get inside, definitely. And well, but there's actually reasonable room even for taller people, so that's quite okay. I can also close the roof while I'm sitting here, just to show you, what about the headroom? One means 86 or 6'1", and I mean, with open top, it doesn't really matter. And here, when it's closed now, so it's still something about my head. So there is some headroom left. So yes, it works also for taller people. That's actually no problem. And well, you sit basically on the road directly, but still there's reasonable comfort for such a sporty car. You can adjust the seats in an electric way, also the back part here. And the steering column can be adjusted manually like this. Yes, you could say it could also be electric, but it's a very smooth processing here to do that. So I'm actually okay with that. Just, adjusting it while driving won't be so easy. So I talked about the difference of a roaring speedboat and the silent, sporty sailing yacht. And this interior design also reminds me a little bit with this wide span right there from left to the right. Other than that, it's not super clean because you see a lot of different elements and, design styles right here and there. So I think they could have made it a little bit cleaner. but for sure it looks quite attractive still. Horizontal layout, the GPS comes as standard, but most of the other things, also the head-up display, Bluetooth connection and stuff, is all optional. Some hard buttons right, left here, also the sound control, and also the climate unit is still the classic stuff, as you would, maybe you would still like that. I think it's good when you drive that you can still do it in a classic way. And this automatic gear lever here, putting it to the left side then when the car is running. This will go to the sport mode. We'll soon show you that when we drive the car. And on the left part you can pick different driving modes, for example. And for the infotainment system, you still use it here with the central knob. This one here also features the touchscreen already, so you have both possibilities. And in the lower area you can open or close the roof and also have one USB slot and cup holder, and one is more to the rear, but overall of course limited in the space. Then let's take a look at the instruments. You see they are all digital, and then they change, for example, according to the drive mode you've picked. And on the left side, the big speed. Head-up display, it appears bigger in real life than it actually is seen here, and is also not flickering. And when you're in sport mode, it also changes to a bigger RPM perspective. And one more look at the infotainment system. So this is standard as we know from BMW. Sometimes it can be a little bit hard to find what you're actually searching for. Of course, you have the hotkeys to go, for example, to a map directly. The GPS is working very well, so you find your ways very precisely. That works pretty well today here on Majorca, beautiful island. And as about connectivity, you can connect your phone via Bluetooth, but it's also possible to plug it in then with the Apple CarPlay. And a wide lens camera view, or when you approach things, you can also get a fake drone view from above. So in the middle console, also not too much room. This one opens like this for the roof and for the USB port, and this one then in the opposite direction, for example for the phone. Well, even a sunglass cover hardly fits in here. And if you put the key here, by the way, then you cannot start the car, and it says, hey, can you please put the key closer to the steering column? Also strange fact. When you sit on the inside, by the way, you press this button there to electrically release the door, and then you can push it open. But then just in case everything would fail, there's also a manual failsafe. This is the one right here. This is the way you could then manually open the door. Well, at the moment the electronics are still working, so we can open it like this and then get out. And I think the best way is again to put the legs first. As a driver you can also either put perhaps the steering or put your hand right here and then get out like this. Yeah, I think I gotta practice this. Maybe should be looking a little bit more elegant in some other way. So what about putting more things in this vehicle here? It is tricky. I've already put the front seat at your side to the front with this side strap. There's also a hanger here for the for a jacket on the back. And then you can see this area here. But first of all, this is a touring package where you can put some smaller things, but this is pretty useless, I think. And then here you can actually fit a backpack or even a cabin trolley in here. You can also split this area like this with those. Then you have, they're more secured. Those are, by the way, also speakers for the sound actuator. And when there are some luggage on there, the sound comes out here. There's an additional cup holder right there. So it is somehow tricky to squeeze the stuff in, but after all, you can still fit some stuff in here, you can see. And of course, this is special with the Roadster, as the coupe comes with a 2+2 seater, so you have some more room to work with, or also have those emergency seats. This is what you get then with the Roadster. And then there's the actual trunk. You can open it from the inside or also with the key. Here we go. Still cannot see any engine. Sorry. There's something, from the engine behind this one here, but it's also again just for servicing. And here, does this actually carry a cabin trolley? Yes, it does. Wow. So you can actually fit 2 cabin trolleys and 2 backpacks in the car. One cabin trolley here, one cabin trolley in the, after this, behind the seats, and then one big and one small backpack, and that's about it. Short, agile driving preview, starting pure electric. And of course, with this good handling, direct steering, the car is light and it also feels light. Sits so well on the road. You feel it's a long car. Therefore, when the corners get very narrow, this one was still quite okay. When they are too narrow, then you feel the long wheelbase as well. Other than that, a super sporty handling, and in this pure electric mode, it's already so much fun. Look at that, how I can steer it around, and I just hear the wind. Everything else is silent, and that's just, this is such a great feeling. At the same time, putting it in sports mode, combustion engine is active, then you have more boost, go faster, get the maximum acceleration out there. Always pay attention to the cyclist. Also sound, combined from the real engine and from the sound actuator here inside the cabin. And then you have, a boost like with a very powerful pure electric car. It feels really like that because in the front, the electric motor is still pulling us, whereas the engine in the rear is pushing us, working then as a seamless all-wheel drive system. Wow, really cool. Using shifting pedal is also possible. And then I can also get some nice sound just out of a 1.5 liter turbo petrol engine. Enjoy. The funny thing about this super sport car is, and yes, I do call it a super sport car, well, you can drive silently if you want. So at the moment, we're just rolling pure electric. And if you're starting maybe from your yard or just don't want to annoy someone in the neighborhood, that's the way to go. You can always press the e-drive button. This one is then the pure electric drive. So maximum, if you just drive pure electric, could be something about 40 kilometers. Other than that, it's used as a boost function or to reduce the consumption. But I think it's good to have this option. It's a different approach. I mean, if you think about a Jaguar F-Type V8 and you start it in the morning, everyone knows you are starting it. And people are really split. Maybe you really want to have that sound and you want to say, hey neighbors, I just started my car. But maybe you want the rather subtle approach with this one here, standing still here at the traffic light, totally silent. Also now with the convertible, I've driven an electric convertible once so far. It was a Smart 4.2 electric convertible, and it's really amazing to drive an electric convertible because it rather feels like riding a bicycle without sound, with open top, but at 70, 80 kilometers an hour or something. And that's also part of this vehicle. This vehicle is not only about hammering it all the way, V8 sound and so on. This vehicle actually can do both, wants to do something more. And I think that's a very interesting approach, which we're already feeling it when we're starting the car very slowly. So, especially here now in the Roadster version, you feel that you dissolve a little bit more with your surrounding. Absolutely silent. Hear this little from the electric engine. Sorry, the electric motor. Yeah, I know there's no such thing as an electric engine. And of course, agile always when you need it, even if it's just a small lane change in the city. Well, they could have also made it pure electric, of course. That was my point earlier as well. I think that would definitely work, because if it works for 40 kilometers, it surely works for that too. So there are some guys now who want to challenge us here, and well, even if I'm just purely electric here, I'm gone. I mean, there's enough power also from the electric engine. It's actually no problem. Electric motor, sorry. So this is also one feel of this vehicle. Just enjoy driving along the coastal line here in Palma de Mallorca today. It just feels great, and this is one of the parts where you might. Oh, I have to go right. Sorry. This is one of the parts where I have to say you do not miss the sound. Actually, it's just cool. It's just cool. Even without the sound, I do not miss a V8 sound here. Actually, I'm more relaxed, but at the same time, I can drive it very fluently and also rapid. So you still have a very good acceleration, because the electric motor always gives you the maximum torque that is available. It's interesting also what I've done with front wheel drive and rear wheel drive, because the engine is powering the rear wheels, and the combustion engine and the electric motor, the front wheels. There's no physical connection between those. As I said earlier, therefore you can also add up the horsepower figures. And they are actually playing together. But if I'm just in the electric mode, then I just have a front wheel driven super sports car, which is, again, really peculiar, isn't it? The suspension is, of course, set on a rather stiff mode, as you would expect from such a vehicle. You do feel the bumps in the road. I think it's not too bad. Co-driver check, does it get through your lower back? Is it okay? So Katrina says it's okay for her, and that's definitely a good sign when it's okay for the co-driver. So you do feel a connection with the road, but it's not that stiff that you would say you cannot really drive it. Look how agile this car feels. Very precise from the steering wheel, very natural steering feel. And I can already tell you so far, I would love to drive this car pure electric all the way. So far, as I said, also says 43 kilometers pure electric. Always depends, of course, how you drive it. Yeah, but that will maybe then with the Porsche Mission E, and I'm absolutely sure that BMW at one point will also present a sports car which is pure electric with a high range. That's that's going to happen. But we can also test the other driving modes. So the Auto e-drive, which we will go in now, will remain with the electric one when you're driving slower. And as soon as I push it a little harder, then it will also activate the combustion engine. About the regeneration, well, we do have the regeneration when we're in the pure electric mode, so you gain back the energy. When you are in those automatic driving modes, and especially in the sport mode, which will soon activate. Now, I'm not sure if you heard that. The combustion engine got active. I got some more boost now. Also hear the sound. They do use sound actuators. That means the sound you hear here on the inside is not the one you hear on the outside. For the inside passengers, it is artificially enhanced. There's always a lot of discussion about that. So some say, that's so pathetic. Come on, really? Seriously? But then again, you can say, regulations and being a little bit more silent on the outside. And at the same time, you can have sound fun on the inside, so you can argue for that. I think it's a little bit pathetic when you do it with a V8. That's happening, You remember the Lexus V8 we've been driving? They still have sound actuators for the inside, because modern engines are so well insulated from the cars nowadays, or from the cabin, so to say, passenger cabin. Here I'm quite okay with that if they do that. So we do have some sound now. Let's maybe shift back. We can also use the shifting pedals here. It's actually quite decent. You know, as a car experience expert, you also hear that it's actually you know, a very small engine. You hear that somehow from the sound. It sounds somewhat funny. Yeah, a little bit like a motorcycle engine. You know, BMW also builds motorcycles, so. I guess I could also live without the sound, I think. I mean, it's quite decent, but it's not a sound where we could say, oh wow, that's the best sound ever. But then again, this is not what this car is about. Shall we just take this roundabout just one more? How cool is that? Wow, this is so nice. I would just drive this roundabout the whole day, really. And it feels so easy. And actually, when you do that, and the car is still pretty much silent, that feels even greater somehow because it's so effortless. This car is really effortless. And the funny thing is that effortless, we sometimes say maybe about SUVs or something, which are also a little bit sporty, but you know, or big luxury sedans with good power. But effortless here for a sports car, that's really interesting, really interesting. Let's go to the next mode. So, what do we have? Let's see. So, Eco Pro, Comfort, well, those are some minor changes. What you can do, Eco Pro for some more savings, the throttle input is changed for that. Here the eDrive, the auto eDrive again. So usually you would leave it in the auto eDrive and maybe just put it to the pure electric mode when you're driving it in a city, for example. So you know, that's possible. Then we also have the sport mode, turning the stick here to the left, the automatic gear lever. And this will also change the digital instruments here in the front, putting it to red. We also are basically in the manual mode. Also the head-up display changed now. And the sound changes. So in the head-up display I see now the big number for the gear change and also an RPM meter. And you also heard that the sound has changed. So pretty interesting. You sit so low at the road, it's definitely also from the feeling a difference. This is really a supercar feeling, but I feel that the car is, for a supercar, relatively easy to handle. So if you think about or compare it to a McLaren, let's take that one for example. This one here again has less effort. So it's easier to drive. So if you have never driven a super sports car and you just sit in this one here and start driving, you know, you won't feel like, oh, I can't do this, this is too hard, it's too complicated. This will still be fine for you, I can tell you. And this is also a very interesting approach, making it easy for the driver to get to know this vehicle. Wow. This car is so much fun, and especially now with the open top, I would of course always choose the Roadster over the Coupe. Shifting back with the pedals now, shifting up. Wow. Yeah, I mean, you have some more boost in the sport mode. 4.6 seconds is the acceleration figure to 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour. That's about 0.2 seconds slower than the Coupe, but I mean, you can easily live by that. Oh, the police is getting some fish. So maybe we should pass the police now with a very loud acceleration. What do you think, guys? Should I do that? We just keep it very steady. We want to keep on with this review. Of course, we also want to test the acceleration here, right? So now it also gets interesting about the wind features. So far we were driving maybe like 70 or something, 70 kilometers an hour, and it was not too windy in here, so quite good. And now it's doing acceleration from next police. Sorry. So this is so effortless. I mean, just plop and we're there. Really cool. Maybe some 80 to 120. Oh, that's it. So that went so quick. And now at 120, well, it's getting a little bit uncomfortable here, wind, noise and turbulations wise. You feel exactly in this area. Well, this rear window we have there, let's get back to the normal mode. You have different modifications for that. So you can have it all the way up, like this. You can put it all the way down, and then there's a recommended position, like just a little notch. I didn't feel too much. Did you feel any difference now? Well, I didn't feel too much difference. It's more about the speed you have, but they say that in this middle position it would be the best against wind turbulences. 90 kilometers an hour is still quite okay. So if you think about just something below 60 miles an hour, above that you feel the wind. I mean, if you are in California, like the majority of the customers of this vehicle, I mean, you usually have temperatures like these, you know, like 25 degrees here. That's Fahrenheit, I think, in the 80s or 90s even, something like that, I think 80s. I'm not the best with calculating that one. And I mean, but then again, probably most time you wouldn't drive that fast anyway. Again, really stable on the road, of course, this car. This speed is nothing. Interesting also that even if I go to the electric drive, we can drive pure electric with the maximum speed of 120 kilometers an hour. That's totally enough then with the electric. If I want to drive fast, I mean, here for example, when we're not in Germany, most of the time we're not allowed to drive faster anyway. So I can also accelerate just in the pure electric mode. And what I would be interesting now is when I really hammer the throttle, does the car stay in the electric drive mode? No. So this is a question of philosophy. We do have some plug-in hybrids which stay in the pure electric mode, and there's also enough power available. Just maybe not at the highest speeds. But then again, we have seen, for example, also the Porsche Panamera hybrid. They have a resistance in the throttle then. And when you hammer it all the way through, it's the same here. Then also the combustion engine gets activated for the maximum boost. And that's the same which is also happening in the sport mode. You get the maximum boost by combining both motors. And what's really astonishing is that how seamless you have the transition between those different modes. So you don't really feel it. The characteristic of this car is also not too different depending on front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, because the car sits so well on the road and is so effortless and smooth and sporty to drive. You don't feel so much difference than from where the power is coming from. And there's, you know, a constant transition between all of those. Well, what is also interesting, when we close the roof now, oh, we can't do that here, that's too fast. So we can do it at about 50 kilometers an hour maximum. So I'll show you that very soon. Because I also want to tell you something about the noise insulation and when the roof is closed. But of course, I mean, I can't close or open it at this point, yeah. And it's a funny thing. I mean, I would have never thought about doing it in a convertible, but this car, you know, it's so seamless and effortless that you basically think everything is possible. So really nice in the driving characteristic. Well, what about long-term driving or road trips? I mean, those are sport seats. They have a little bit more shoulder support here in the Roadster if you compare it with the Coupe. I mean, I would not recommend it for hours and hours and hours. Considering it's a super sports car, I'm okay with the seating comfort. You too? Yeah. Okay, so co-driver proof as well. But of course you cannot compare it in the comfort with a really good seating position you have somewhere else. You have to make a compromise at some point, and when you sit so close to the road, well, that's what you get. But considering this segment here, I think it's also pretty decent what they did there. Look at how stable this car remains also at higher speeds. It's really amazing. So let's try something more again, going to the sport mode once more. Oh, radar camera signs, so that's the perfect road then testing acceleration. What about somewhere 70 kilometers to 100? Let's go. It's like instantaneously. And again, from the acceleration, you do not miss a V8 or something either. So I think the biggest difference is that you don't have the sound. But on the other hand, you have this really cool stuff that you can drive pure electric. Maybe you can feel a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more eco-friendly as well. You can even commute to work pure electric. And you can say, hey, you know, I got an electric car. It's an i8. I mean, that could really work. No? Why not? So, a good car to travel to your office in Silicon Valley, for example. Well, if they have put maybe some less cows on the seats, that would be even more or more suitable for the sustainability idea. But I think the overall idea shows the transition, that it's going in the right direction, by the way. So in front of us a car that you might, you know, more people might be able to own, Hyundai Kona, also in our review at the moment, so you can join that review as well. So, cruising is also fun here in this car. Good traveling speed is something about 70 and 90 kilometers an hour, I would say, that you can really enjoy it also without being too loud. Funny thing is also when you look to the rear mirror, or to the side mirror here, and you see this aerodynamic design line I've explained to you with the exterior. It looks like the roof would not have been opened or closed properly. You would say, there's something broken with the car. You know, when you look in the mirror, see that? See that? Oh my God, my car's being ripped apart. That's how it looks like. But that's how it's meant to be. At least from this perspective, it looks pretty weird. So rest assured, that's not a real problem. So there's a normal cruise control inbuilt here too. I mean, if that's a vehicle for 170,000 euros, which we're driving here, it also should have this stuff in, you know. Also like a blind spot monitor. I mean, you could say, yeah, pure sports car and stuff, but come on, seriously. Just put those assistance systems in the car when you pay so much money for a car. I mean, lane keeping assist, I can argue with that some might say, this is influencing my driving too much or something, you know. Good example here now with a BMW M, the total contrast to this car. Passing us then with a big V8 raw, for example. And if you're sitting in here, you really do not miss that at all. So I find that, you know, the solution or the whole concept of this car is pretty cool, actually. And you don't have so much less comfort than in another convertible. Of course, you drive a big chassis without you around. But then again, as long as you're inside the car, then people can look from the outside, and this is of course somehow also a show-off car, but definitely a show-off car in another way, not in the classical way. So I would say we do one more acceleration, and then we're off to some countryside roads Or maybe we can still show you that now. Let's get it off here. The GPS, by the way, is pretty easy to follow. I like that with the BMW. So GPS from the Volkswagen Corporation, so VW, Audi, Seat, Skoda, and the BMW GPS. To me, they work the best as how they lead you in the way. I've talked about it recently with the Mercedes GPS software. We usually have one point in the driving event where we are misled at some stage. And that's not happening here. So now where the car is really at home, let's check that one out. And first again, pure electric. When I raise the throttle foot, I can also see how the car is recuperating, recharging. Now being pulled from the front wheels. It's agile and fun to drive. I mean, isn't the concept of an electric convertible just superb? I think you can even more enjoy the surrounding. And definitely also others. I mean, even if you like an V8 sound yourself, do you like it when you're sleeping in your garden, maybe, you know, on a chair? Maybe not. So this car really also thinks about others and not only saying, you know, I'm just focused on what I'm doing myself. I think that's a very interesting aspect of this vehicle. So great here in this electric mode again. Just some additional slalom you can put in. So stable around the corners. Then let's do the direct opposite from electric mode again back to the sport mode. Engine roar, which is again boosted by the speakers there. Car definitely feels different. Funny thing is, as soon as the sound is applied, the car feels heavier, although it of course isn't. That's just a very subjective feeling. Interesting, you know, when you have less sound, the car feels lighter. Very interesting aspect. You have more boost because you had the boost from the front wheels, the instantaneous torque, and also the petrol engine then from the rear. And that gives me a lot of power. Wow. It's actually, the feeling is rather with a pure electric vehicle, if you leave the sound now aside. But even if you're in this all-wheel drive mode, let's call it, then you still have the feeling that it's predominantly an electric vehicle. So yes, it's a plug-in hybrid and the petrol engine gives you more power, but somehow the electric feeling stays dominant. And I like that, because that's also what's setting this car apart from other vehicles. Has no direct competitors if you think about plug-in hybrid sports cars. That's also the reason why BMW says, hey, we got the most selling plug-in hybrid sports car. Yeah, because there are no others like this. That's easy then. But of course, price-wise, you have a lot of other competitors. So let's see, if we find a straightaway, we can also give you a direct acceleration from 0. But good that it's not that straight here, so we can have more fun with corners. So sometimes I say, let's have some more corners to have some more driving fun. In this case, I would like to have one straight where we can safely stop and accelerate. I was pushing over the front wheels just a little bit. Wow. You feel the length and the wheelbase of this car, definitely. Wow. Tight corner here now. Well, that was handled very well again. Really nice. So now I'll give you some corners just to enjoy. A little bit late, the shift back there, right? But that's just pure Autogefuehl, isn't it? So, car feeling, the direct translation. Now, by the way, we can also operate that roof. Sorry, that was the the glass thing behind us. So let's close that stuff. And as I said, we can drive 50 kilometers maximum. So now we're all the way closed. And you might ask yourself, difference to the coupe? Well, of course it's more silent when the roof is closed, and the coupe will always be more silent, but nowadays the differences then to those modern soft tops are really minor. You have a very good insulation. Also here, I immediately feel that. So that shouldn't be the crucial factor, I guess. And you're all seeing it on the exterior, the line of the car, the design line is also kept pretty much with the Roadster here. So it's also good that they have the soft top that you can really open and close it also at some higher speeds. You see the car is also still agile enough that you can do some steering around here in those narrow street corners. And here then again, you know, car switched to the electric mode. So I was not in the pure electric mode, right? Just checking it. Yeah, I was in the auto mode. So even if you're in this auto mode, the car just does it by itself. When I'm not hard on the throttle, that's no problem then. So let's see also what the consumption figure tells us. And this is of course then combined, you know. Now it says 5 liters on 100 kilometers. You know, we've used some electric. We started, I think, about 45 kilometers of range. Now we're at 37. So we did not use all the electric power. And so you can really see, if you then combine that, you can really also score low consumption figures with this car. Also because it's, of course, very light. And now to our conclusion for today with the BMW i8 Roadster. I think that they've made it a Roadster now really makes sense. It really harmonizes with the electric drive you have there. Makes more sense than with the coupe. You can even more enjoy the silent super sports car driving. Well, it does not have a lot of room on the inside. The whole concept of this building form doesn't make sense at all. But this segment is also not about making sense. It's more about emotions, looking at the exterior and also experiencing the vehicle. But definitely if you think about getting one for everyday driving, you know, that's of course not that easy. But for the segment, you still have reasonable comfort. Definitely also unique in the exterior styling, very well processed on the interior styling. Of course, we would like to see more sustainable seating materials, especially with a super sports car that wants to be sustainable. The electric drive or the plug-in hybrid drive was really impressive. I would actually have preferred to drive it pure electric all the time. It's just fun, it works. With combined boost, of course, you had great power that also worked. So I think this is a good transition where you can actually also score some decent consumption figures. Well, and then at the end, you have to question yourself, if you would buy a super sports car, which one would you get? And for me, it's definitely this one, because the electric ride works, the concept, the idea behind it. This is something different and something unique which really appeals to me. And it's just not the standard way. And that's what I like about this car. What about you? Tell me your opinion in the comments and also join us next time.